Hello everyone, and I'm really fascinated by this lady that's with us today. As you can see, I've got Sue Hainsby here, and I'm fascinated because she's done something that most women do not do, and that is go into a lot of property development and then transform that business into something slightly different but even more demanding, and perhaps an area that a lot of people don't want to go into, which is being a landlord. So I'm going to ask you, Sue, welcome to the show, and can you tell us a little bit how you got started in property development and how you ended up being a landlady?
Morning, Victoria. Well, I was a landlord first, totally by default. Bought an investment property, never intended to have anything to do with it. The letting agent, managing agent that we'd given it to, everything went catastrophically wrong. So we had to sort it out. My husband was involved in the early days, so we had to sort it out. Didn't really feel comfortable giving it to an agent after that, so decided I'd look after it myself, and then got the bug. So then we bought more properties, and that's when I got heavily involved and began renovating and letting them out. So that was in 2005. So it's been a long time now.
Yes, I mean, I've watched programs on the television, and it always looks so easy. And then I know a lot of people have been in a situation where they've had problems with the finances and thought about letting. But it is a daunting step, isn't it? Working with other people's lives and having other people living in your property, and then developing property is quite risky. So how did that go for you? What was the stress?
It is a weird concept. Our current house that we live in, we've been in 23 years. So we moved in here in 96, and my husband suggested when we moved in here that we should keep our previous home. And at the time I said, don't be so ridiculous. I don't want anyone living in one of my houses. Who has two houses? Whoever wants two houses? That was back in 1996. So speaking now with 24, 25 properties, whatever it is, it's I've obviously got over that part of my concerns. Yes, it's tough. Yes, you're dealing with people's lives. It's definitely a people business. And you're managing two lots of expectations as a landlord. You're managing the tenants' expectations, and sometimes what they're asking for is a little bit unreasonable. And if people message me like, do you think you can put a new kitchen in for me? This one's looking a bit tired. That's in one of my properties, so I can quite easily say no, not yet. And then you get Latin, really all landlords want, who don't want to look after their own properties, is they just want a tenant that's in there, happy, staying long term, looking after the property and paying their rent on time. So it's our job here to facilitate that. So just manage as a landlord, especially as a letting agent, you're just managing two lots of expectations.
And I think the idea of a letting agent is a proper business, isn't it? A lot of people will end up letting their homes and becoming landlords, landladies, and it's really part-time business. But to take it on to another level, to set up an actual letting agency with all the legal ramifications as well, which of course a lot of people don't consider, do they? I suppose, I mean, from my point of view, I was interested, but it was quite daunting, and I didn't go down that route. So what was it? Was it your husband compelling the drive of that business, or was it partly your enthusiasm?
No, not at all. The first property, we bought, and then after that, he has no interest whatsoever. I absolutely believe that women make better landlords. I do. You're looking after properties. Most women tend to run the home. For me, I just run a lot of homes, and I do consider them people's homes. They're our properties, but they are people's homes, and we want people to feel comfortable and at home there. So no, my husband has had nothing to do with the business whatsoever. In fact, we had a conversation with some friends last night where sometimes the accountant says that maybe I should put him on as a director on my company, and I'm just like, absolutely not, never, not going to happen. Very protective of it. It's absolutely my baby. The properties that we own, a lot of them we jointly own, but the letting, Carly Ann Lettings is mine and mine alone. started by me, run totally by me. So obviously with the help of Natasha now. But yes, certainly I was not driven to this by a man. I'm driven to a lot of things by a man, but this isn't one of them.
Well, it's fascinating that you've said that, because most women would assume it was a masculine-led occupation. And the thing that concerns me then is how do you cope emotionally if you do have people who don't pay their rent or struggle or have problems when they have families? I mean, as a woman and a family woman and a homemaker, what does that bring up for you? I mean, has it been a big problem, or is
really
it something
difficult.
that you've learned to handle?
I have learned to handle it, and I realised we had to evict someone earlier this year, and I realised that the two ladies that work with me, they seemed to be getting more stressed about how she was treating me than I was, really, because I try not to take it personally. And what's been surprising, we've got lots of young professional couples in our properties, and then have had a few women, few families. And if someone had asked me years ago who would be most likely to default on the rent or mess around, I would have said the youngsters, first time moving in, first time having any responsibilities. It's never been a youngster. It's always been a family. I've had to evict 3 people, and it has been the whole bailiffs, locksmith on standby, the whole shebang that you see on the telly. And every time it has been, out of the 3 times, have been 2 families and one lady the same age as me. It's never been a youngster, and I find it absolutely shocking when they've got families and they would allow. And I work hard. I don't want to do it. It's unpleasant, and I work very, very hard to find a way to keep them in their property. But at the end of the day, it is a business. All of my properties are mortgaged. My bank manager is not, he wants his mortgage payment every month, and for me to do that I need my rent payment every month. And it's a legally binding contract, and you can't just stop paying because you feel like it. But it takes a long time, and it's a lot of effort, and it's unpleasant. But it hasn't ever been the youngsters. It's always been people with families, which is, it's hard as someone with a family to have someone walking out here where they've got a 2-year-old and they're pregnant.
Oh, yeah.
It's not good. It's not, it's not good, and it never gets any easier. But it's from not taking it personally, I think, is the biggest thing. Being
objective without control, because I know that you're not a cold person and that you're very caring, and I can tell by your the way that you're talking about this now, and you found it quite traumatizing. So how do you self-care then? How do you look after yourself as a businesswoman in this day and age, with all the multiple tasks that we have to do with social media and other things as well?
I have a great family, so I spend a lot of time. I've got grandchildren now. They are the light of my life. So on a Friday, I'm with them, and most of my decisions on a Friday are made by a 2-year-old, which is great. So Fridays are a good day. So I have the children on a Friday. I don't work on a Friday. Natasha looks after the office on a Friday, so I don't work. I always have my phone, because I have to have my phone 24/7 to deal with emergencies. But I can do that with the children. So I've got great fun. I've got amazing friends. So I have a lot of fun with my friends. So I try to go to the gym. I go to the gym a couple of times a week. I get my hair done very regularly, because I'm not naturally this dark anymore. So there's some nice natural highlights. So that's a couple of hours of sitting peacefully with my very lovely Turkish hairdresser who looks after my hair. Yeah, he's great.
Right.
So Turkish coffee, Turkish delight, and a little bit of a head massage. So every couple of weeks. So no, I'm pretty relaxed about the whole. I love my job, so I don't find. Yes, it gets stressful. Yeah, but it's never something that I don't want to do.
Well, I think you said, you just said that you've only evicted 3 people in all those years, and obviously it was complex and hurtful to everybody. Yeah. But that's a pretty good record, isn't it? So and you talk about having high standards as well for yourself and for your business. So that helps, doesn't it, to placate and to avoid problems?
I think you have to recognise that this is a business. You know, I think some people think they can just put someone in a property and just leave them there. I've had people say to me, my tenants are really good, you know, I just don't ever hear from them. Well, what's happening? What's going on? One, what's going on in your property? Are they looking after it? And two, how do you know they're okay? Some tenants will complain about everything. They'll ring you every 5 minutes for stuff, quite high maintenance. Other tenants, you don't hear anything until it's, you know, 4 or 5 appliances are broken down, and then they finally feel they need to tell you. So we have a program that we adhere to quite strictly. So every, you know, we're in contact with them regularly, and then at least every sort of 3 to 6 months I go personally and I visit every single property.
Really?
Yeah. So we can keep, especially, you know, we have the office in a block of apartments, so these ones here we keep much bigger. But last week we had external people in visiting every apartment, doing an inspection report. So renting's expensive. There's no two ways about it. It is expensive. So it is a business. People are paying good money, and they need to be provided with a service. You can't. There's no way around that. So we like to provide a very, very high level of service. And if they know we're at the end of the phone and they know we're going to deal with it, and part and parcel of that is having the right tradesman that will respond quickly, then they feel like they're being looked after. We're just putting together some statistics at the moment. I think the average length that a tenant stays is 3 years. Ours have been in there like 9 and 10.
Oh, that's
we
wonderful.
Have very small turnover of tenants because they don't want to leave, and often they'll leave a flat but go into a house, you know, and stuff like that. You know, there's a
lot of people going into looking at this. They often look at the outside, don't they, and think it's an easy ride. You just get money for old rope, but it is a lot of maintenance. So how are you developing this? Did you tell me that you're part of some organisations that are trying to promote good landlordship or letting agency ship?
Yeah,
good
we're
practice.
an accredited landlord, but for just our own stringent things, we produced a charter here, which we call the Carly-Ann Charter, which we give to everybody when they move in, so they know what they can expect from us, what we're going to do, and we put in there what we expect from them. We give them a questionnaire after they've moved in, asking what part of the service, if we fell down anywhere, what areas we could improve on. And then when they move out, and we take care to do it once they've actually moved out, we ask them then, was there anything you was unhappy about? Because once they've gone, they're more inclined to be honest.
And has that changed at all over the years? Has people's needs or what they expect changed since you started to where it is now in the current climate?
Yeah, because I hear a lot, young people can't afford to buy, they can't afford to get on the property ladder. I'm not entirely convinced that all young people actually want to own a property. I believe we've got some high earning, very, very professional tenants in our properties. They want to rent. They want to call me when something breaks down. They don't want to be bothered with it. They want, especially while they're working, before they have a family, they like the flexibility of being able to move should they want to. Once people have a family, they want to be a little bit more stable in an area, so they may buy then. But I think renting now is a first choice. It's not the only choice. I think it used to be considered as something that you did if you couldn't afford to buy a property. And now I don't believe that that's the case. I think people are renting because they want to rent.
But then again, that was only a short period of time, wasn't it? And the latter part of the last century, because we could talk about the last century. There's only a few years in the whole history of living accommodation that we've after buying our own houses and getting on that. So yes, maybe societal views have changed as well. So what's new for you now then? How would you take your life forward? Are you looking forward to an early retirement?
Early retirement. We have. I've never had a plan in my life, particularly. From a personal perspective, we're selling over the next we've got a 3 to 5 year plan where we will sell off some of our other properties and we will be putting that money into this block here at Rochester, so that eventually this block here will be completely mortgage free, which would then give us a nice income. I did get very emotional. My husband said when we were refinancing, and I sent him my very basic Excel document that I did, and by the time I'd driven back to Chislehurst, it had turned into some sort of masterpiece with arrows, but he works in finance, and he said, you know, you've done a great job and it's done what we intended it to do, and if we sell all these properties, you know, Foodside can become mortgage free. And I just had a complete meltdown and cried, and said that, you know, I couldn't envisage selling off these properties, because to me they are properties, but there's people in them. They're people's homes. But I've realised that it is supposed to be a business, and for us going forward to enjoy the fruits of sort of 15 years worth of labour, the best thing to do is to keep this block mortgage free. So that's on a personal level. So that's what I'm doing with my properties that I personally own. But with the letting side of the business and the managed side of the business, we're full speed ahead. We're looking to take on more rental properties and build the management side of it. So although I reduce my personally owned properties, not got any eye at all on retiring or doing anything like that. I am trying to have one day a week off, just because it gets a bit busy, and then the children just finish me off on a Friday. So Wednesdays, I'm trying to take a Wednesday off just midweek, just to have a little bit of time to myself. So I often work on a Saturday, because most of our tenants work. So to go and do the inspections, or if I do viewings and I want working professional tenants, I try to accommodate that as much as possible, because one of their big bugbears is that they're in work, they see a property, you know, they can't keep taking half a day or a day off of work to go and view properties, and then they miss out on them. So I try and do it. I list the property, and then I do a viewing day. So I'll do a Saturday, or I'll do evenings, 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, because they're working. So
your business then really is more than just a letting agency in an office. It's a lifestyle, and you've got quite a good work-life balance, where you've got the freedom then to actually make choices with grandchildren, with holidays, etc. And you're talking about having a longer view of working as long as you like, but easing back a bit as you go, which sounds ideal. So can I just ask you then, Sue, what kind of advice would you give somebody now who's thinking about going into either property, or perhaps have now been inspired to think about letting? You know, what do you suggest their first steps are, or an appropriate approach to modern business?
Well, we attended the National Landlords Association at Olympia a couple of weeks ago. I hadn't been for about 5 years, so thought we'd go along and have a look and see what's going on. And there's lots of tax changes at the moment. It does appear that this government, but I do believe it would be any government, are not overly friendly with the private rental sector, and they're making stuff very difficult for people with lots of tax changes. If you're buying an additional property, if you own a property and you're buying a second property, you have an additional 3% stamp duty to pay. So it's slightly more difficult now from a financial perspective. There's not so many products on the market if you need finance to buy. So I just think you need to approach it in a very, very professional way. I think you need to have an accountant that has rental, has property experience. You need to have a broker that understands the rental market and point you in the direction of the best products, and get your finance and that in place. Join an association like the National Landlords Association, do their courses. They'll give you, that's how I found a lot of my information back in 2005. They're a huge support. And just recognise it is a business. It's not a hobby. It's not a game. It's people's lives. It's an awful lot of money that you're investing, and treat it as a business, respect it as a business, and respect your tenants that are in there. I was a landlord for 5 years before I started managing properties for other people. And you learn along the way that you just have to respect people. You really do.
Yeah, I think what you've done there is paint a very clear picture that this is quite a serious thing to go into. I know a lot of people just fall into it or have an idealistic view of it. And it is a lot to take on. There's a lot of legal ramifications and financial losses to be gained if you're not careful. So thank you for that.
I mean, there's this great term of accidental landlords, and there's an awful lot of people that have had the same accident, it would appear. Lots of people rent, and it's fine to rent for it if you're not sure what you're doing or if your job's moved away, rent. We try and I find the best way to look at it is if you have everything in place that you need to have, but if something goes wrong, if you put that in place. So we used the lady that we had to evict earlier this year, because you can't start possession proceedings unless you've served certain legal documentation at the start of the tenancy. So we were able to do that because we had done that, but we now have a very comprehensive checklist to ensure that we've provided the tenants when they're moving with every bit of legal documentation that we have to, and we have them signed to the effect that they have received that information. So should everything go wrong, we can serve notice. We have everything in place to serve notice. It's quite shocking when people they think they can just turf someone out. You can't. And that's why I say to it, it's not easy,
But you don't want to lose your property either, do you? That's the problem, is it?
Even if you want to look after the day-to-day running of your property, to deal with the call-outs and deal with your tenant directly, do that. But when you're setting up a tenancy, just make sure you speak to somebody that knows what they're doing, because it could end up saving you an awful lot of money and heartache in the long run. Yeah.
Very good advice. Very sad.
We've definitely learned the hard way.
Well, thank you, Sue, for sharing some of the hard ways and giving us a good description of that. So, but it wouldn't put you off. Would you do it again?
Yes. Yeah.
Hesitation.
Yeah, I would.
The results are good, aren't they, for you? So that's
worked really well. It's not, lots of stories along the way. The development side of stuff has not been without its issues. So don't build a 19 apartment building with your finance from an Icelandic bank that collapsed halfway through is probably the best bit of advice I can give to anybody.
I think that might have happened to you.
Yeah, that wasn't my best moment.
And that's the whole point, is that we can't foresee what's going to happen in life. We can make plans, or we may find ourselves drifting along life's stream, but how we manage ourselves. And Sue, you're a shining light. You're always very funny and very, very sensible. So I'm going to say goodbye now, but I would like you just to put a little call out for your contact information in case there's somebody listening or watching who would really, really like some advice, or to find out how they can let from you. Perhaps they want to rent a property.
Yeah, I mean, we're happy to offer landlords any advice at all. So if they just want to call us, if they've just got something they're not sure about, talk to us. If they're not happy with their current agent, it's really not that difficult to change. We've done it for lots of people. So my email address is sue@carleann, and at carleann.co.uk. Our website is www.carleann.co.uk. We are on Twitter. I think I'm on Twitter as @Hainsby Sue. We're on LinkedIn, Sue Hainsby, Carleann Lettings, and we're on Facebook. My telephone number is 07506 056 977. So whatever mode of contact works for you, please just get in touch. We're happy to have a quick chat about anything that may help you.
Wonderful. And I know that you like to speak, and you like to do some keynote talks on property and letting and agencies and things. So if anybody wants to have Sue along to talk for your audience and your professional body, then do get in touch with Sue for that as well. And thank you, Sue. So I'm going to say goodbye to everybody and see you again soon. Bye, Sue.
Thanks, Victoria. Bye.
Bye.